It was a cold and dark late autumn night when I decided to go fishing at a secluded lake near our village. My name is Reza, and fishing has always been my sanctuary of calm. But that night, there was something in the air that gave me an unsettling feeling. Nevertheless, I decided not to pay heed to my unease and ventured out into the middle of the lake with my boat. The lake I went to was famous for its beauty and serenity, but in recent months, strange rumors had circulated about it. Several people from nearby villages had gone missing, last seen near the lake. Some said restless spirits haunted the lake, but I never believed in such tales. In the darkness of the night, only the sounds of water and wind could be heard. I lit my lantern and sought larger fish. As I was engrossed in fishing, suddenly I heard a strange noise behind me. I quickly turned around, but saw nothing. I tried to stay calm and continued fishing. A few minutes later, I heard another sound, this time closer and clearer. My heart raced, feeling like someone was watching me. I glanced around the boat, and what I saw filled me with dread. A large, blood-stained knife lying on one of the seats. The knife had not been there before. Fear gripped me, and I swiftly turned the boat towards the shore. As I paddled back, I heard the sound of footsteps moving through the water. I looked and saw a tall, dark shadow moving towards my boat. The shadow drew closer and closer. Terrified, I rowed faster, but it felt like the shadow was gaining on me. Finally reaching the shore, I jumped out of the boat and ran towards the village, screaming at the top of my lungs. When I reached home, I informed my friends and family about what I had seen. No one believed me until a few days later when the police announced that several bodies had been found near the lake. The bodies were mutilated in a horrific manner, and no one could explain what had caused these events. Police investigations yielded no results, and the killer was never identified. But I knew something beyond human was in that lake, something emerging from the darkness and claiming human lives. After that night, the village fell into fear. No one dared approach the lake anymore. Terrifying stories about it grew more and more. Every night, as I fell asleep, I dreamed of terrifying nightmares from that night. The sound of heavy breaths and dark shadows always haunted my mind. One night, while I was asleep, I heard a knocking sound in the house. I woke up in fear and rushed towards the door. When I opened it, an old doll I had found by the lake stood at the threshold. Its empty, terrifying eyes stared at me, and I felt something moving around me. Fear engulfed me, and I couldn't even breathe. The doll slowly crept inside the house, and all I could do was freeze in my place. Since that night, every night I hear the sound of heavy footsteps and harsh breaths in my house. Dark shadows move around the corners, and I don't know how long I can escape this horror. Now I'm sure the lake is cursed, and no one should go near it. The nights are passing hard. Every night the same sound of breaths and footsteps repeats, each time closer and more terrifying than before. I feel the shadows getting closer every moment, intent on engulfing me. In all this time, the old doll with its empty, terrifying eyes remains in a corner of the room, haunting my mind. One night, I decided I couldn't bear it anymore. I had to find a way to escape this nightmare. For this reason, I went to one of the wise old men of the village who knew about old stories and legends. Hearing my story, his face contorted and he said, "What has come close to you is not just a spirit. It is a dark and malevolent creature that has risen from the depths of the lake, seeking its victims." The old man advised me that to break free from this curse, I had to return to the lake and return the doll to where I had found it. Though terrified by his words, I knew I had to do it. The next night, with the doll in my hands and a heart filled with fear, I returned to the lake. Thick fog and darkness still dominated the lake's surface. With heavy and trembling steps, I sailed towards the middle of the lake. As I approached, I heard the breaths and footsteps again. It seemed that dark shadows were moving in the lake's water. When I reached the spot where I had found the doll, I threw it into the water with shaking hands. The lake water boiled quickly, and strange waves appeared. Suddenly, a tall and dark shadow emerged from the mist and came towards me. I closed my eyes and prayed for this nightmare to end. Moments later, when I opened my eyes, everything had calmed down. The fog slowly dissipated, and the lake returned to its normal state. It seemed that the shadows and terrifying breaths had disappeared. It felt like the curse of the lake had ended, but I could never forget those terrifying nights, and the old doll still lingered in my mind. I didn't know what had truly been hidden in that lake, but I knew no one should ever approach it. Time passed, and everything seemed normal again, but deep inside, I felt that something was not over yet. One night, while preparing for bed, I heard a faint sound from behind the window. Fearfully, I approached the window and pulled aside the curtain. Outside the window, in the darkness of the night, stood the same old doll with its empty, terrifying eyes. In that moment, I realized that this nightmare would never end, and I would always be pursued by darkness.